Hey, it's Mike from the Run Testers. So I noticed in the comments on one of our videos, someone said, "Where's all the Casio running watch reviews?" So, fortunately, we do have something for you. This is the Casio G-Shock Move, which is also known as a Sport in the UK. So this is a sports watch, fitness watch under the G-Shock kind of brand. There's a couple of big features that kind of elevate it from Casio's other G-Shock sports watches. Definitely a lot going on there for runners as well. So it's only been out for a short time. I've had it a few weeks before it went on sale, and so I've given it the kind of full run testers treatment. And I want to give you kind of my thoughts on how I got on, what it was like to run with, and give you my verdict on whether you should buy the Casio G-Shock Move or Sport. Okay, so let's talk about the design first. I think it's fair to say this is probably one of the biggest watches I've run with. So obviously with G-Shocks, there's a whole ethos about creating design that's shock resistant and impact resistant. So the way that's achieved on this watch is it has what Casio calls a hollow core guard, basically, which is this big frame, the red frame, protecting the screen. Well, it gives you that extra kind of peace of mind in terms of durability. What it also does, though, is creates quite a big watch to wear, which is kind of what G-Shocks normally are, but this is probably bigger than your typical G-Shock. So it's a 63mm case, which is bigger than most running watches by a fair amount. You're also looking at something that's 20mm in terms of thickness. That's almost double a lot of watches in terms of thickness as well. So it's a big watch. I didn't find it heavy in the kind of 30-minute, 40-minute runs, hour runs, but I don't think I'd want to run with it any longer or longer distances. Well, I think you would start to notice the extra weight that you get over other kind of running watches. Other things to kind of pick out. So you're getting 5 physical buttons in total. So you've got 4 around the edges, and then you've got this dedicated run button here. So all kind of pretty straightforward in terms of where things are laid out, and nice and textured, so it's kind of nice to kind of press when you're running. In terms of display, you're getting an LCD display. It's not touchscreen, which, to be honest, we've said before, we'd rather have the buttons over the touchscreen. In terms of visibility, I've had no problems really. For kind of when you're running at night and stuff, you've got this dedicated light button, and you can also control the strength of that illumination from a couple of settings. Also, when you raise your wrist, it'll illuminate the screen as well, which is useful to have, and it was responsive in terms of when we used it. So yeah, those are kind of key things. You've got the heart rate monitor back, which I'll go into more later. The strap is a urethane band, so plasticky, very much in that G-Shock mould in terms of feel. It's not as it doesn't have that softer touch you get on a lot of running watch straps, but it's been fine. I haven't had any issues or discomfort. But I think if you were wearing it on longer runs, those I was speaking about, I think you might notice it a little bit more. Those are the key things about the design. Looks like a G-Shock. It's bigger than your standard G-Shock still. It's not in the same kind of bracket in terms of other running watches, in terms of the stature and the way it sits on your wrist. But I didn't have any major issues. It's big. It's a big watch. So yeah, those are the key things in terms of design. I'm now going to get onto the key running features and what it's like to run with. Okay, so the key running features, you've got built-in GPS. You've also got the kind of support for the other kind of big satellite systems for tracking your runs outdoors. There's also an auto run mode, which kind of detects when you're running and just starts tracking. That doesn't use GPS, that uses its motion sensors, which it uses to track running indoors, so maybe slightly more inaccurate. We'll get into the kind of testing of how that got on later. You've also got a heart rate monitor. Now this is a big deal for Casio's G-Shock. This is the first G-Shock to have a heart rate monitor. So Casio have put a heart rate monitor in their Pro Trek smartwatches, but this is the first time we've seen it in a G-Shock. Now what that unlocks is pretty standard features, so the ability to see your heart rate in real time, to train by heart rate zones, you get heart rate zone alerts, which is quite nice. It also powers some other features that are to do with training and analysis. So you're getting stuff that actually you'll get on kind of Garmin watches, which is powered by a company called Firstbeat. So they kind of focus or work on heart rate based kind of analytics. So with that information from the heart rate, what they do, you can get stuff like training load, training status. You're also getting VO2 max data as well. So if you're if you want something that tracks your running but also looks at how that kind of those training sessions kind of impact on the other sessions that you do, you have that information here as well. So those are kind of the key things. You've got some other additional outdoor sensors like an altimeter, barometer, compass, so you're getting an extra hit of data there as well. But those are kind of the key things in terms of running. I'm now going to get into getting out there, also getting on a treadmill and seeing what it's like to run with. Okay, so what is it like to run with? The first thing to kind of note is that it's not really kind of a dedicated run mode screen like you get on most running watches. Essentially all you do is you press that run button, that kind of opens up the run tracking, waiting for a GPS signal, and then once that's found, or if you can just go without it, you're ready to run. In terms of that kind of GPS signal kind of lock-in, it usually took 40 seconds to a minute, maybe sometimes a little bit longer. It was always kind of longer than what I got on the Phoenix 6 in terms of that pickup. So it did keep me waiting around to kind of get tracking using the GPS. Once you've got a signal and you're ready to go, kind of information you can see, things like split time, distance, pace, lap distance, lap pace. You're also getting heart rate, you're also getting ascent and descent from the kind of barometer, altimeter, and the kind of other sensors that are on there. So there's a lot to kind of dig into. This raises the kind of first issue for me when I was running with it, in the sense that you can customise the data fields. The screen is quite small, so it's trying to fit in a lot of information into one screen, and I always found I could only really absorb the main data field in the middle, whereas the other kind of ones around it was very difficult to kind of squint to kind of see. It's a shame, and that's kind of where maybe the touchscreen would have been nice to have, where I was scrambling with the two kind of buttons to navigate and try and find the information that I wanted. What I ended up doing is generally just keeping it on one screen, which is not ideal if you've got all those kind of running metrics on offer. In terms of the running metrics, it was pretty reliable. Things like pace, things like distance, even calories, which I don't pay massive attention to, but it was pretty much spot on with the Garmin in terms of what it got paired to our heart rate chest strap. So there's also the auto detection for running. So I use that outdoors and indoors. What I found outdoors, it was probably about 200-300 meters out from a GPS watch. With that, you're not getting mapping, because you're not using GPS. You're using the accelerometer, which is used to track motion, things like steps and indoor running. When I moved into indoor running and kind of on a treadmill, you're getting kind of similar. Maybe it's slightly larger in terms of the distance tracked compared to a footpod. What I did notice, what I think was a bit odd, is that you could view heart rate in real time. When you synced the run over, it didn't seem to show you the heart rate data for the treadmill run, which was a bit odd. Speaking of heart rate, obviously that's a big deal. This is a headline feature for the watch. What I found was it wasn't great. On some runs it was maybe 5 BPM out from kind of the average heart rate readings. But what was the weirdest thing, or the oddest thing, is some of the max heart rate readings, the wild spikes. For instance, like one run outdoors when it was quite hot, I knew my heart rate would be higher than normal, and I was running a little bit quicker than normal. It posted a 220 BPM heart rate, which is absolutely ridiculous, and it kind of stayed there for a long time and left kind of a flat line, suggesting that I was running with that heart rate, which compared to the heart rate chest strap I was using, a Polar H9, that's not what it was. And I know obviously it's unrealistic. The problem with that heart rate data, or the heart rate monitor, in terms of what it does and what it records, that kind of undermines the other features that are relying on it. So things like training status and training load and VO2 max. Interestingly, what I found is the VO2 max was exactly the same score as the Garmin with the chest strap. So I'm not quite sure how that's those numbers add up, but the actual data during the runs didn't really at all. So generally running, some of the metrics are really good. The heart rate monitor wasn't great for me personally, and if you're buying it for that feature, then in my experience it kind of let me down. I should also talk about battery life, and actually battery life is one of the good things on this watch. So you're getting 66 hours, which is based on GPS and heart rate, and then you can get months and maybe a year just in normal watch mode. And you've also got solar power, so that'll top up the battery as well to give you even longer. And what I found in my runs is it barely dents the battery life if you're just using GPS, but as soon as you factor in heart rate monitoring and you've got heart rate monitoring on all the time, there's a bigger drop off in battery, and you are going to get those 2.5-3 days, which is basically what I found. But it's it's not as bad. It didn't drain in the way that I thought it might have done. It kind of holds up pretty well in terms on the the back of run tracking. So yeah, those are the kind of those are the main kind of testing in terms of running. Some good, some not so good. Now I'm going to get into kind of my verdict on what I thought overall, and whether you should buy it. Okay, so run tester's verdict on the Casio G-Shock Move, also known as a Sport. So I'll start with the good stuff. Good stuff being that a lot of running stats on offer there. Actually, more than I thought there would be, and it's quite nice to see that they've tried to get as much kind of insights into the watch, and actually reliable data as well. Battery life was pretty good as well. Again, I went in thinking it was probably going to be not very good, but apart from when you've got like continuous heart rate monitoring on, it's pretty good with the GPS, and it kind of meets the claim, I think, of what Casio kind of suggests it should get. On to the not so good stuff. I think the thing that leaves a kind of lasting impression is the amount of data and how it's displayed on the watch itself. The screen just isn't big enough to display what Casio wants to show you. If anything, I would have preferred if they offloaded some of the stuff to the app and just let you view something a bit more simplified on the watch itself, or just put a bigger screen. You've got this big huge case on it. I mean, just stretch out the screen and give you give more room for that data to breathe. Obviously, the heart rate monitor, I did not have a good experience with this, and whether it was indoors or outdoors, intervals, just kind of easy tempo runs, it was good in parts, but it ultimately skewed the average and max heart rate information that made it really difficult to kind of rely on. So yeah, and those kind of things, make it really difficult to kind of recommend at the moment, and its current state. It's $399, it's £379. It's a lot of money, and based on my experience, you can definitely get a better running watch experience elsewhere for a lot less money. Whether that's Polar, whether that's Garmin, whether that's Sinto, you can get a better experience. And it's a shame because I think there's some really nice things here, and a lot has surprised me in terms of what Casio has managed to achieve here. having a web app, having having the amount of data that you've got there, the compatibility with third-party apps like Strava. There's a lot of things that I did like, but ultimately that's outweighed by the not so good stuff. So should you buy it? I mean, if you like G-Shock watches and you want this kind of ultimate fitness watch, sports watch, I don't think it's going to be totally, right there for you. In terms of the ultimate running watch, it's not really there yet. I look forward to see what Casio do in the future with it, and hopefully they can take on board some of those things, give us a bigger screen, and handle that data and the navigation a bit better. But as it stands right now, not quite there yet. And yeah, that is my take on the Casio G-Shock Move Stroke Sport. If you've got any questions about my experience running with it, let us know down in the comments. As always, like and subscribe, and I will see you for the next Run Testers video.